I was just getting ready for Christmas dinner at my daughter's house, until a single text from my grandson made my blood run cold immediately. My name is Evelyn, I'm 71 years old, and I was putting on my red Christmas dress, the one my late husband always said made me look like an angel, when my phone buzzed on the dresser. It was from my grandson, Tommy. Don't come to our house now, Grandma. Mom has a secret plan for you. My hands froze. The pearl earrings I was trying to fasten slipped through my fingers and clattered onto the hardwood floor. I could barely breathe. My heart started pounding so hard I thought it might burst right through my chest. What kind of plan could my own daughter possibly have for me? What kind of plan required a warning from a 16-year-old boy who should have been excited about opening presents and eating too much pie? Before I tell you what I found out that night, what I discovered about the daughter I raised, loved, and sacrificed everything for, please, like this video. Subscribe if you believe no parent deserves betrayal from their own child. And comment where you're watching from, because I read every single one, and know I'm not alone in this pain. It helps. It really does. Christmas has always been my favorite time of year. Always. Ever since I was a little girl growing up in a tiny apartment in Philadelphia, watching the snow fall past the window while my mother hummed carols in the kitchen. I'd been baking cookies all morning, the same gingerbread recipe my mother taught me 60 years ago, the one with the secret ingredient that makes them soft in the middle and crispy on the edges. Molasses. That's the secret. And a pinch of cardamom that most people wouldn't even notice, but it's there, adding that warmth, that comfort. I'd wrapped little gifts for my grandkids, Tommy and his younger sister, Grace. Nothing expensive. I'm on a fixed income, you understand. Social Security and a small pension from the hospital where I worked as a nurse for 37 years. But I'd found a beautiful hardcover book about astronomy for Tommy because he's fascinated with the stars, always has been since he was 5 years old, and I took him to the planetarium. And for Grace, a set of watercolor paints because she loves to create, to make beautiful things with her hands. Just like I used to do before the arthritis got so bad. My daughter, Ruth, had insisted I come this year. She'd called me 3 weeks before Christmas, and her voice was so sweet, so warm. Mom, you have to come this year. The kids miss you so much. It's been too long since we had a real family Christmas together. And God help me, I believed her. I wanted to believe her so badly. Because it had been years, 3 years, to be exact, of distance, of awkward phone calls, of birthdays acknowledged with text messages instead of hugs. I thought maybe, finally, after all that coldness, all that unexplained tension, we'd have a normal Christmas again. The kind we used to have when Ruth was young, when her father was still alive, when we'd stay up until midnight wrapping presents and drinking hot chocolate, when Christmas morning meant pancakes shaped like snowmen and laughter so loud it filled every corner of our little house. I'd even bought a new dress for the occasion. Red, like I said. With little pearl buttons down the front. I'd seen it in the window of a department store and something about it reminded me of better times, of the woman I used to be before grief and loneliness carved out so much of my heart. It cost more than I should have spent, but I wanted to look nice. I wanted my daughter to be proud of me. I wanted my grandchildren to see their grandmother looking put together, not like the sad old woman I sometimes catch glimpses of in the mirror. But then my phone buzzed again. And then again. I picked it up with trembling hands, and the messages were from Tommy, and the tone of them, God, the tone, made my blood run cold. Grandma, please, don't come to our house now. Mom has a secret plan for you. And then, I'm serious. She's been on the phone all day. Something about papers and your house. And finally, I'm scared, Grandma. I don't know what to do. But I couldn't let you walk in here without knowing. My chest tightened. The room started spinning. I sat down hard on the edge of my bed, still in my slip, the red dress hanging on the closet door like an accusation. A secret plan? Papers? My house? What was he talking about? What could Ruth possibly be planning that required secrecy, that required a warning? I tried calling Tommy, my fingers shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. It rang and rang and rang. No answer. I tried again. Nothing. That's when I saw he'd sent me a photo, and when I opened it, when I saw what was in that image, I realized why he was warning me. It was a photograph of documents spread out on Ruth's dining room table. The same table where we were supposed to eat Christmas dinner in just a few hours. I had to zoom in, squinting at the small screen, but I could make out the words at the top of the papers. Power of attorney. And property transfer agreement. And my name, Evelyn Margaret Richardson, typed out in cold, official lettering. My own daughter. My only child. The baby girl I'd labored for 16 hours to bring into this world. The toddler I'd walked to preschool every morning, rain or shine. The teenager I'd sat up with when her heart was broken, when her father died, when the world seemed too cruel to bear. The woman I'd helped through college, through her wedding, through the births of her own children. She was planning to take everything from me. I couldn't move for the longest time. I just sat there on my bed, staring at that photo on my phone, reading those words over and over again until they stopped making sense, until they were just shapes, just sounds. Power of attorney. Property transfer. My house. The house my husband and I bought 43 years ago. The house where we raised Ruth, where every room holds a memory, where his presence still lingers in the creak of the floorboards and the way the morning light comes through the kitchen window. How long had she been planning this? How many times had she smiled at me, called me Mom in that sweet voice, asked how I was doing, all while plotting to rob me of everything I had left? I felt sick. Actually physically sick. I ran to the bathroom and dry heaved over the toilet, nothing coming up because I'd been too excited to eat all day, too busy baking and wrapping and getting ready for what I thought would be a beautiful family evening. The bathroom tiles were cold under my knees. I'd installed them myself, well, my husband had installed them, and I'd handed him the tools and mixed the grout and stayed up with him until 2 in the morning to finish the job because we couldn't afford to hire someone. Everything in this house, we'd built together. Every payment we'd made together. Every repair, every improvement, every memory soaked into the walls. And she wanted to take it. She wanted to take it and probably sell it and use the money for God knows what. A bigger house for herself? A new car? A vacation? I pulled myself up from the bathroom floor and looked at myself in the mirror. My face was pale, my eyes red and swollen. Even though I hadn't cried yet, the tears wouldn't come, there was too much shock, too much disbelief. My gray hair was still in the rollers I'd put in that morning, thinking I'd take them out and brush it into soft waves, thinking I'd look pretty for my family. What a fool I'd been. What a stupid, naive, trusting old fool. I went back to my bedroom and sat on the bed again, still staring at that photo. Tommy had overheard his mother talking on the phone. I pieced that together from his frantic messages. He'd written, she was in her office with the door closed, but I heard her say your name. She said something about getting Grandma to sign tonight and making sure everything is ready, and she won't even realize what she's signing. She won't even realize what she's signing. Those words. God, those words cut deeper than any knife could. Because they revealed the truth, didn't they? She wasn't even planning to be honest with me. She wasn't going to sit me down and explain whatever twisted logic she'd constructed to justify this. She was going to trick me. Deceive me. Maybe slide those papers in front of me with Christmas music playing and grandchildren laughing and say something like, "Oh Mom, just sign here, it's just some legal stuff to make things easier, don't worry about it." And I probably would have signed. Because I trusted her. Because she's my daughter. Because every instinct I have, every cell in my body, wants to believe that the child I raised could never, would never, do something like this. But the evidence was right there on my phone screen. Her handwriting on a sticky note in the corner of one document: Christmas dinner, after dessert, make sure kids are distracted. She'd planned it all out. Every detail. The timing, the manipulation, the distraction. This wasn't some impulsive mistake or moment of poor judgment. This was calculated. Premeditated. Cold. I sat there for hours. Not moving. Not crying. Just sitting in the growing darkness as the winter sun set and shadows filled my bedroom. The Christmas cookies downstairs were probably getting stale. The wrapped presents sat by the front door, ready to be loaded into my car. The red dress hung on the closet door, waiting to be worn to a dinner that would never happen. My phone kept buzzing. Messages from Ruth: Mom, when are you leaving? Dinner's almost ready. And the kids are getting restless, they can't wait to see you. And finally, after I didn't respond, Mom? Is everything okay? Are you coming? The concern in that last message almost made me laugh. Almost. Because it was so convincing. If I didn't know what I knew, I would have heard a worried daughter checking on her mother. But now? Now I heard a con artist getting nervous that her mark wasn't showing up. I heard a thief worried that her carefully laid plans were falling apart. But I didn't respond. I couldn't. Because I didn't know what to do. What do you do when you discover something like this? Who do you call? Who do you trust? My husband would have known. Robert always knew what to do. He was steady, practical, and smart about these things. But Robert has been dead for 8 years, and I'd been navigating this world alone, trying my best, making mistakes, trusting people I shouldn't have trusted. Finally, as the clock on my nightstand clicked past 7, we were supposed to eat at 6, I made a decision. I called Harold Goldstein. Harold was an old friend, a retired lawyer who'd helped me after Robert died, who'd explained all the estate paperwork and made sure everything was in order. He'd told me back then, Evelyn, if you ever need anything, anything at all, you call me. Day or night. I didn't think I'd ever need to take him up on that offer. But here I was, sitting in the dark in my slip and hair rollers, calling him on Christmas evening. He answered on the 3rd ring. Evelyn? Is that you? Is everything all right? And that's when I started crying. Finally, the tears came in great, gasping sobs that shook my whole body. I tried to speak but couldn't form words. I just cried and cried while Harold's kind, patient voice kept saying, "It's okay, take your time, I'm here, just breathe." When I finally pulled myself together enough to explain what had happened, Harold's voice changed. It went from concerned to serious, from gentle to sharp. "Don't sign anything," he said. "Nothing. I don't care what she tells you, what excuse she gives, what emergency she claims to have. Do not put your signature on any document she gives you. Do you understand me, Evelyn?" I understood. God, I understood. "And don't let her know that you know," he continued. "This is important. If she realizes you're aware of what she's planning, she might try something else, might move faster, might find another way. I need you to act normal for now while I figure out exactly what she's trying to do and how we can stop it." Act normal. How was I supposed to act normal? How was I supposed to smile and hug my daughter and pretend everything was fine when I knew, what she was capable of? But Harold knew what he was doing. He'd been practicing law for 40 years before he retired. He'd seen cases like this before. He told me that elder financial abuse is more common than most people realize, and that children, adult children who should know better, are often the perpetrators. "It's heartbreaking," he said. "But it happens every day. Parents who trusted their kids, who gave them everything, who never imagined they could be betrayed like this." He told me exactly what to do. Call Ruth back. Apologize for not responding, say I'd fallen asleep, that I was tired from all the baking and preparation. Tell her I wasn't feeling well and wouldn't be able to make it to dinner. Make it sound believable, make it sound innocent, don't arouse suspicion. And tomorrow, Harold said, tomorrow you come to my office. Bring any documents you have related to your house, your finances, anything with your signature on it. We're going to review everything and make sure she hasn't already done something you don't know about. And then we're going to put protections in place. Real protections. Legal protections. His words should have made me feel better. They should have made me feel safe. But they didn't. Because the problem wasn't just legal. It wasn't just about documents and signatures and property rights. The problem was that my daughter, my own daughter, wanted to rob me. And no amount of legal protection could fix the fact that my heart was broken in a way I didn't know was possible. I called Ruth back. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone, but I did what Harold told me to do. I lied. Just like she'd been lying to me. Ruth? Sweetheart? I'm so sorry I didn't respond earlier. I fell asleep on the couch and just woke up. I'm not feeling well, honey. I think I might be coming down with something. There was a pause. A long pause. And then her voice, tight and strained, oh. Oh no. That's too bad, Mom. Are you sure? Maybe you just need to rest a little more? The kids were really looking forward to seeing you. Using the kids. Of course she was using the kids. That's what people like her do, isn't it? They use whoever they have to use, manipulate whoever they have to manipulate, to get what they want. I know, honey, and I'm so disappointed too. But I really don't feel up to driving right now. I'm sorry. Maybe we can reschedule for this weekend? Another pause. I could almost hear her mind working, recalculating, trying to figure out if this was just bad luck or if somehow I knew something. Yeah, she finally said. Yeah, okay. This weekend. You rest up, Mom. Feel better. The concern in her voice was so fake, so hollow, that it made my stomach turn. But I played along. Thank you, sweetheart. Give the kids a hug from me. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, Mom. I hung up and threw the phone across the room. It hit the wall and clattered to the floor. I didn't care if it broke. I didn't care about anything in that moment except the crushing weight of betrayal that was pressing down on my chest, making it hard to breathe, making it hard to think, making it hard to believe that this was really happening. I didn't sleep that night. Not at all. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my mind racing through memories, trying to find the moment when things went wrong, trying to identify the exact instant when my daughter transformed from the girl I knew into someone capable of this. Was it when her father died? She'd taken it hard, harder than I'd expected. She was 35 years old, a grown woman with children of her own, but she'd sobbed at the funeral like a child, clinging to me and saying, "He was too young, Mom, it's not fair, he was too young." And he was. 63 was too young. The heart attack took him so suddenly we didn't even get to say goodbye. After that, Ruth had become distant. Phone calls became less frequent. Visits became shorter. She always had an excuse, the kids were busy with school, she had a lot going on at work, her husband was traveling. I'd told myself it was normal, that grief affects everyone differently, that she needed space to process her loss. But maybe that wasn't it at all. Maybe she'd been angry. Angry that he died and left her with just me. Angry that there wasn't more money, more inheritance, more of something to show for his life. Robert had been a good man, a loving father, but he wasn't wealthy. We'd lived modestly, saved what we could, but most of our money had gone into this house, into raising Ruth, into making sure she had opportunities we never had. Maybe that wasn't enough for her. Maybe she'd expected more. Maybe she'd looked at our middle-class life and felt cheated somehow. Or maybe it started earlier. Maybe it started when she married Wilfred. I'd never been sure about Wilfred. He was charming, successful, and said all the right things. But there was something cold in his eyes, something calculating. Robert had seen it too. One night, after they'd been dating for about 6 months, Robert had said to me, "I don't trust that guy, Ev. Something's off about him." But Ruth loved him, and what were we supposed to do? Forbid her from seeing him? She was 26 years old, an adult making her own choices. They'd gotten married, had Tommy and Grace, bought a big house in an expensive neighborhood. Wilfred worked in finance, something with investments that I never fully understood. They always seemed to have money for nice things. New cars, fancy vacations, private schools for the kids. But maybe it wasn't enough. Maybe they were drowning in debt. Maybe they looked at my modest house, my modest savings, and saw a solution to their problems. Maybe I was just a resource to be exploited. The next morning, Christmas Day, I woke up exhausted and hollow. I'd maybe dozed off for an hour or two, but it was that fitful, nightmare-riddled sleep that leaves you feeling worse than if you'd stayed awake. I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table, still in my nightgown, staring at nothing. My phone buzzed. A text from Tommy, "Grandma, I'm sorry. I didn't know what else to do. Are you okay?" That boy. That sweet, brave boy. He was just 16 years old, caught between his mother and his grandmother, trying to do the right thing even though it must have terrified him. Even though he must have known there would be consequences when Ruth found out he'd warned me. I texted back, "I'm okay, sweetheart. Thank you for telling me. You did the right thing. I love you." His response came immediately, "I love you too. Mom's been in a bad mood since last night. I think she knows something's wrong." Of course she knew something was wrong. Her carefully laid plans had been disrupted. Her Christmas con had failed. And now she was probably trying to figure out what to do next, how to salvage the situation, how to still get what she wanted. Well, she was going to be disappointed. Because I wasn't some helpless old lady who could be tricked and manipulated. I'd worked as a nurse for nearly 4 decades. I'd dealt with doctors who thought they knew everything, administrators who tried to cut corners, insurance companies that denied coverage to people who desperately needed it. I'd learned how to fight, how to advocate, how to stand up for what was right even when it was hard. And I was going to fight now. For my home. For my dignity. For the life Robert and I had built together. Harold's office was closed for Christmas, but he'd told me to come to his house. He lived in a nice neighborhood about 20 minutes from me, in a brick colonial with a wreath on the door and lights strung along the eaves. His wife, Margaret, answered the door and hugged me immediately. "Evelyn, dear, come in, come in." Harold told me what happened. "I'm so sorry. This must be terrible for you." Margaret and I had been friends for years, part of the same book club, volunteering at the same hospital auxiliary. She led me to Harold's study, where he was already waiting with a legal pad and a serious expression. "Okay," he said once I'd sat down and Margaret had brought us coffee. "Tell me everything. Start from the beginning. When did you first notice something was off with Ruth?" So I told him. Everything. The growing distance over the past 3 years. The sudden invitation to Christmas dinner that had seemed so warm and genuine. Tommy's warning text. The photo of the documents. Ruth's planned timing, after dessert, when the kids were distracted. Her note about making sure I wouldn't realize what I was signing. Harold took notes, asking questions, his expression getting darker with each detail I shared. When I finished, he sat back in his chair and rubbed his face with both hands. "This is bad, Evelyn. This is really bad. If she'd succeeded in getting you to sign those documents, especially a power of attorney, she would have had legal control over your finances, your property, everything. She could have sold your house without your permission. She could have drained your bank accounts. She could have taken out loans in your name. And by the time you realized what had happened, it would have been extremely difficult to undo. The words hit me like physical blows. Sold my house. Drained my accounts. Loans in my name. The full scope of what Ruth had been planning, what she'd been willing to do to her own mother, crashed over me like a wave. But she didn't succeed, Harold continued. Thanks to your grandson, you know what she was planning, and we can stop it. But we need to act fast. Because if she's desperate enough to try this, she might try something else. He outlined a plan. First, we'd review all my existing legal documents to make sure Ruth hadn't already gotten access to anything. Then we'd set up new protections, a trust, new account security measures, alerts that would notify both me and Harold if anyone tried to access my finances or property. We'd also document everything, Tommy's texts, the photo of the documents, the timeline of events, in case we needed to take legal action later. And Evelyn, Harold said, his voice gentle but firm, you need to think about what you want to do about Ruth. Do you want to confront her? Do you want to cut off contact? Do you want to press charges? Because what she attempted, this is financial elder abuse. It's illegal. You'd be well within your rights to report her to the authorities. Press charges. Against my own daughter. The thought made me want to vomit. But then I thought about what she'd been willing to do to me. I thought about the lies, the manipulation, the cold calculation. I thought about how she'd used Christmas, used my grandchildren, used my love for her as weapons against me. I don't know, I told Harold honestly. I don't know what I want to do. I need time to process this. To figure out who my daughter really is. We spent all of Christmas Day in Harold's study, going through my documents, setting up protections, building a wall around everything I owned to keep Ruth out. Margaret brought us sandwiches for lunch and more coffee and kind words. By the time we finished, it was dark outside, and I was emotionally and physically exhausted. But I felt safer. Somewhat safer, anyway. The house couldn't be taken from me now. My accounts were locked down. Ruth couldn't touch anything without triggering alerts that would immediately notify Harold. I drove home through the dark streets, decorated with Christmas lights, families visible through windows, laughing and opening presents and enjoying the holiday. What must that be like, I wondered? To have a normal family? Do you have to worry that your own child is plotting against you? My phone had been buzzing all day with messages from Ruth. At first they were casual, Merry Christmas, Mom. Hope you're feeling better. Then concerned, Mom, you haven't responded all day. I'm getting worried. Then annoyed, can you at least let me know you're okay? The kids are asking about you. Using the kids again. Always using the kids. Finally, around 9 o'clock that evening, I responded, sorry honey, I've been sleeping most of the day. Still not feeling well. I'm okay, I just need rest. Tell the kids I love them. Her response was immediate, okay Mom. Let me know if you need anything. We can bring you soup or medicine or whatever you need. Sure you can, I thought bitterly. Come to my house, get me to sign something while I'm sick and vulnerable, take everything while pretending to care. I turned off my phone and went to bed. The days after Christmas blurred together. I went through the motions of normal life, made meals, watched television, cleaned the house, but I felt like a ghost, disconnected from everything, floating through rooms that suddenly felt empty and sad. Harold had advised me to avoid contact with Ruth for now, at least until we had everything secured and I'd decided what I wanted to do. But she kept calling, kept texting, and I had to respond sometimes or she'd get suspicious, maybe show up at my house, maybe push harder. So I played the game. I texted back. I made excuses. I claimed to still be recovering from whatever illness I'd invented. I was vague about when we could reschedule Christmas. I kept her at arm's length while trying to sound normal, trying to sound like a mother who loved her daughter and not a victim who'd barely escaped being robbed by her own child. It was exhausting. Every message from her made my stomach churn. Every time I saw her name on my phone screen, I felt a mix of anger and grief so intense it was physically painful. Tommy texted me every day. "Are you okay, Grandma? And I'm here if you need to talk, and I love you." That boy was keeping me sane. His sister Grace didn't know what had happened. She was only 12, too young to be burdened with this, but Tommy knew, and he was carrying that weight with me. I wondered what would happen when Ruth found out he'd warned me. Would she punish him? Would she cut off his contact with me? Would she turn him against me with lies and manipulations? The thought terrified me. Because Tommy and Grace were the only good things left in my relationship with that family. Losing them would destroy me. About a week after Christmas, Ruth's calls became more persistent. She wanted to reschedule our Christmas celebration. She wanted to bring the kids over to see me. She wanted to make sure I was okay because you just haven't seemed like yourself lately, Mom. I kept making excuses. I was still tired. I had a doctor's appointment. The weather was bad. I had errands to run. Anything to buy more time, anything to avoid seeing her face and having to pretend I didn't know what she'd tried to do. But I couldn't avoid her forever. I knew that. At some point, I'd have to face her. The question was, what would I say? Would I confront her? Would I pretend I still didn't know? Would I cut her off completely? Harold and I met again in early January. He showed me the security measures he'd put in place. Everything was locked down tight. Ruth couldn't access my house, my money, or anything. If she tried, we'd know immediately. "So now you have a choice," Harold said. "You can confront her. Tell her you know what she tried to do and demand an explanation. Or you can simply distance yourself, gradually reduce contact until there's nothing left of the relationship. Or you can try to maintain some kind of surface-level connection for the sake of your grandchildren, but with firm boundaries and constant vigilance." All terrible options. All variations of loss and heartbreak and the death of whatever relationship Ruth and I had once had. "What would you do?" I asked him. Harold sighed. "If it were my daughter? I honestly don't know, Evelyn. This is one of the hardest situations a parent can face. Because on one hand, she's your child. You raised her, you love her, you want to believe there's some explanation, some way to fix this. But on the other hand, what she tried to do to you was unconscionable. It was cruel. And people who are capable of that level of betrayal, they don't usually change. People who are capable of that level of betrayal don't usually change." Those words echoed in my head for days. It was mid-January when Ruth finally forced the issue. She showed up at my house unannounced on a Saturday morning, Tommy and Grace in tow. I saw her car pull into the driveway through my kitchen window, and my heart started racing. I wasn't ready for this. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know if I could even look at her without breaking down. But she was at my door, ringing the bell, and the kids were with her, and I couldn't just hide and pretend I wasn't home. I opened the door. Ruth was smiling, but it was strained, not reaching her eyes. Tommy looked nervous. Grace was holding a plate of cookies, oblivious to the tension. "Hi, Mom," Ruth said brightly. "Too bright. We thought we'd surprise you. It's such a beautiful day, and we've all been missing you so much. Can we come in?" What was I supposed to say? No? With Grace standing there holding cookies, with Tommy's worried eyes searching my face? "Of course," I said, stepping back. "Come in." They filed past me into the living room. Grace immediately ran to hug me, chattering about school and her friends and a project she was working on. I hugged her back, inhaling the strawberry scent of her shampoo, fighting back tears. Tommy hugged me too, whispering, "I'm sorry, Grandma." She insisted we come. "It's okay, sweetheart," I whispered back. Ruth was looking around my living room like she was cataloging everything, calculating value. Or maybe I was just being paranoid. Maybe she was just looking at the same living room she'd been in 1,000 times before. "So Mom," she said, settling onto the couch, "you've been so hard to pin down lately. I was starting to worry that you were avoiding us." There it was. The accusation wrapped in concern. The manipulation disguised as love. "I haven't been feeling well," I said carefully. "You know that." "For 3 weeks?" Ruth's eyebrows raised. "That seems like a long time, Mom. Maybe you should see a doctor. Get some tests done. At your age, you can't be too careful." At my age. Like I was decrepit. Like I was incompetent. "I'm fine," I said. "I just needed rest." "Well, you look tired," Ruth continued. "You look like you haven't been sleeping. And this house? Mom, it's a lot for you to take care of by yourself. Have you thought about what we discussed last summer? About maybe downsizing? Moving into a smaller place that would be easier to manage?" And there it was. The real reason for this visit. She was still trying. Still pushing. Still trying to get me out of this house one way or another. "I like my house," I said firmly. "I'm not interested in moving." "But Mom, be reasonable. You're 71 years old. You're all alone here. What if you fell? What if you had an emergency? Who would help you?" She sounded so concerned. So caring. If I didn't know better, I'd think she actually worried about me. "I'm fine, Ruth." "Are you though?" She leaned forward, her voice dropping to that tone people use when they're about to say something they think is for your own good. "Because I've been talking to Wilfred, and we think it might be time to have a serious conversation about your future. About making sure you're taken care of. About putting some plans in place while you're still healthy and able to make good decisions." While I'm still able to make good decisions. Implying that soon I wouldn't be. Implying that I was already slipping, already declining, already incompetent. The rage that had been simmering inside me for weeks suddenly boiled over. "I know what you tried to do," I said. The words came out quiet, steady, much calmer than the storm raging inside me. Ruth froze. "What?" "I know about the papers. The power of attorney. The property transfer. I know you were planning to trick me into signing over everything on Christmas night." The color drained from Ruth's face. She glanced at Tommy, who was staring at the floor, and understanding flashed in her eyes. "You told her," she said to Tommy, her voice shaking. "You went behind my back and told her." "Don't you dare blame him," I snapped. "He did the right thing. He protected me from my own daughter. A 16-year-old boy had more integrity than you do." "Mom, you don't understand." "I understand perfectly. You were going to steal from me. You were going to take my house, my savings, everything your father and I worked our whole lives for. You were going to trick me, manipulate me, rob me." "It's not like that." Ruth stood up, her hands shaking. "You're not thinking clearly. You're getting older, you're confused." "I'm not confused. I saw the documents, Ruth. Tommy sent me a photo. I know exactly what you were planning." Grace, who had been playing quietly in the corner, was now staring at us with wide, frightened eyes. I hated that she was seeing this, hated that this ugliness was happening in front of her, but I couldn't stop now. The truth was spilling out, ugly and necessary. You don't understand how hard things have been for us, Ruth said, tears starting to run down her face. Wilfred's business has been struggling. We're drowning in debt. The mortgage, the kids' school, everything. It's too much. And you have this big house sitting here, equity you're not using, money you don't need. Money I don't need? My voice is rising now. This is my home, Ruth. My home. The home your father and I bought. The home where we raised you. The home where every corner holds a memory of the life we built together. And you think I don't need it? You think you can just take it because you're in debt? We're family. Isn't family supposed to help each other? Help, yes. But not by lying and stealing. You could have come to me honestly. You could have asked. You could have explained your situation and asked if there was any way I could help. But instead, you planned to trick me. To deceive your own mother. To make sure I wouldn't even realize what I was signing. Those were your words, Ruth. That's what Tommy heard you say. She was crying harder now, mascara running down her cheeks. I didn't know what else to do. I was desperate. You don't know what it's like to watch everything you've built falling apart, to see your children's future at risk. I don't know what it's like. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. I raised you during the recession in the 80s. Your father lost his job when you were 7 years old. We ate spaghetti for dinner 4 nights a week because that's all we could afford. I worked double shifts at the hospital while he took whatever odd jobs he could find. We almost lost this house twice. Twice. But we fought through it. We sacrificed. We made it work. And never, not once, did we think about stealing from our parents to solve our problems. That's different. It's not different. It's never different. Being in debt doesn't give you the right to rob your mother. Having financial problems doesn't justify betrayal. Tommy stood up suddenly. Mom, Grandma's right. What you were going to do was wrong. I couldn't let you do it. Ruth turned on him, fury replacing the tears. You had no right to interfere. This was between adults. This was family business. I'm family too, Tommy said quietly. And I couldn't watch you hurt Grandma like that. You're a child. You don't understand. I understand right from wrong, he shot back. Maybe better than you do. The silence that followed was deafening. Grace started crying, not understanding what was happening but feeling the tension, the anger, the destruction of something that had once been whole. Ruth grabbed Grace's hand. We're leaving. Come on, Tommy. No, Tommy said. Excuse me? I said no. I'm not leaving with you. I want to stay with Grandma. You don't have a choice. You're my son. You live in my house. I'm 16 years old. I'm old enough to decide who I want to be around. And right now, I don't want to be around someone who would do what you tried to do. I saw something break in Ruth's face then. Some final pretense of control or righteousness. She looked between me and Tommy, at Grace crying and confused, at the wreckage of our family scattered across my living room floor. Fine, she said coldly. Stay here. But don't come running back when you realize you've chosen wrong. She grabbed Grace's hand tighter and headed for the door. Grace was sobbing now, calling for Tommy, reaching back for him. It was horrible. Absolutely horrible. Ruth, wait, I said, some instinct of motherhood overriding my anger. Don't leave like this. We need to. We don't need to do anything, she said from the doorway. You've made your choice. You believe him over me. You think I'm some kind of monster. Fine. But don't expect me to stick around and take this abuse. Abuse? Ruth, you tried to steal from me. I tried to help myself when my own mother refused to. I tried to secure my children's future when you sat in this big house being selfish. The word hit me like a slap. Selfish. I was selfish for wanting to keep my own home? For not wanting to be robbed? Get out, I said quietly. What? Get out of my house. Take Grace and leave. And don't come back until you're ready to take responsibility for what you tried to do. Ruth stared at me for a long moment, her face twisted with anger and something that might have been grief. Then she yanked Grace through the door and slammed it behind her. The silence after they left was crushing. Tommy and I stood in the living room, neither of us moving, listening to Ruth's car start and pull out of the driveway too fast, tires squealing. Then Tommy broke down. He collapsed onto the couch, his face in his hands, his shoulders shaking with sobs. I sat beside him and pulled him into my arms, this almost grown boy who was crying like a child. I'm sorry, Grandma, he choked out. I'm so sorry. I ruined everything. No, baby, no. You didn't ruin anything. You saved me. You were brave and good and honest, and I'm so proud of you. But Grace, she was so scared. And Mom? God, Grandma, what's going to happen now? I didn't have an answer. I held him and let him cry and wondered the same thing. What was going to happen? Would Ruth ever speak to me again? Would she keep Grace away from me? Would she turn her husband, her friends, everyone against me with lies and twisted versions of what had happened? And Tommy, what had I let him do? He'd chosen me over his mother, at 16 years old, and that was a burden no child should have to carry. What if he regretted it? What if this damaged him permanently? It's going to be okay, I told him, even though I wasn't sure I believed it. We're going to figure this out. Together. He stayed with me that night. I made up the guest room, his father's old room from when he was a boy, and Tommy slept there while I lay awake in my own bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the confrontation over and over in my mind. Had I done the right thing? Should I have confronted her like that, in front of the children? Should I have tried to maintain some pretense of normalcy for their sake? But how could I? How was I supposed to smile and play happy family with someone who tried to rob me? How was I supposed to pretend everything was fine when it was so very, very broken? The next few weeks were a nightmare. Ruth called and texted constantly, demanding that Tommy come home, threatening legal action, claiming I was manipulating him, keeping him from his family. I consulted with Harold, who assured me that at 16, in our state, Tommy was old enough to have a say in where he wanted to live, especially since there was no custody dispute between parents, just a teenager choosing to stay with his grandmother for a while. But Ruth didn't see it that way. She saw it as me stealing her son. As me turning him against her. As me destroying her family. The irony was staggering. She'd tried to steal everything from me, but I was the villain in her story. Wilfred called too, trying to play mediator, but his version of mediation was telling me I was being unreasonable, that Ruth had made a mistake but she was still my daughter, that the family should forgive each other. When I asked if he'd known about Ruth's plan, about the documents, about the scheme to trick me on Christmas, he got very quiet. Then he said, Ruth was just trying to help secure everyone's future. So he had known. He'd probably encouraged her. Maybe the whole thing had been his idea. I told him not to call me again unless he was ready to acknowledge what they'd tried to do and apologize. He hung up on me. Grace was kept away from me. Ruth wouldn't let her visit, wouldn't let her talk to me on the phone. When I tried to call her, Ruth answered and said Grace was too upset to speak with me, that I'd traumatized her with the confrontation. More guilt. More pain. Because Grace was innocent in all this, and now she was being used as a weapon, kept from her grandmother, probably being told lies about what had happened and why Tommy was gone and why everything was falling apart. Tommy struggled. He missed his sister. He worried about her constantly. He'd text her, but Ruth had taken her phone. He'd tried to see her at school, but Ruth had dropped her off and picked her up personally to avoid any contact. "She's punishing her," Tommy said one night over dinner, his voice hollow. "She's punishing Grace for something I did. That's not fair." Nothing about this was fair. I tried to maintain some normalcy for Tommy. I made his favorite meals. I helped him with his homework. I drove him to school and picked him up. I tried to be the grandmother he needed, the stable presence in the chaos. But I was falling apart inside. The confrontation, the loss of Ruth and Grace, the weight of knowing my daughter had tried to rob me, it was crushing me. I stopped sleeping well. I lost weight. I started taking anxiety medication that my doctor prescribed when I finally broke down in her office and told her everything that had happened. "Elder financial abuse," she said sadly. "I see it more than you'd think, Evelyn. Adult children who view their parents as assets rather than people. It's heartbreaking." Heartbreaking. That was the word everyone used. Harold said it. Margaret said it. My doctor said it. But it felt like too small a word for the devastation I felt. My heart wasn't just broken. It was shattered into a million pieces, ground into dust, scattered to the wind. I'd given Ruth everything. Everything. I'd carried her in my body for 9 months. I'd labored for 16 hours to bring her into this world. I nursed her, changed her diapers, stayed up with her when she was sick, walked her to school, helped her with homework, cheered at her soccer games, held her when her heart was broken, paid for her college education, planned her wedding, babysat her children. Every sacrifice I'd made, every choice I'd made, had been for her benefit. To give her a better life. To give her opportunities. To give her love. And she'd repaid me by trying to steal my home. It was late February when things came to a head. Ruth had filed a petition with the court claiming I was holding Tommy against his will, that I was unfit to care for him due to my age and mental state, that I was alienating him from his family. Harold told me not to worry, that her case had no merit, that the judge would see through it. But I was terrified anyway. What if they believed her? What if she was convincing enough, manipulative enough, to make it seem like I was the problem? The hearing was held on a cold Tuesday morning. Ruth and Wilfred were there with their lawyer, expensive suit, leather briefcase, confident smile. Tommy was there with me and Harold. Grace wasn't allowed to attend because she was too young. The judge, a woman in her 60s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor, reviewed the petition and then asked Tommy to speak. He stood up, his voice shaking at first but growing stronger as he went. He told the judge what had happened. About the documents he'd seen. About the conversation he'd overheard. About warning me. About choosing to stay with me not because I'd manipulated him, but because he couldn't watch his mother hurt me like that. Ruth's lawyer tried to discredit him, suggesting he was confused, that he'd misunderstood what he'd seen and heard. But Tommy held firm. "I know what I saw," he said. "I took a photo of the documents. I still have it. And I know what I heard my mother say on the phone. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a deliberate plan to trick my grandmother into signing over her property." The judge asked to see the photo. Tommy showed her. The courtroom was silent while she examined it, zooming in, reading the text. Then she looked at Ruth. "Mrs. Morrison, can you explain these documents?" Ruth tried. She claimed it was all a misunderstanding, that she'd just been trying to help me organize my affairs, that I'd been forgetful lately and she was worried that the power of attorney was just a precaution in case something happened to me. But the judge wasn't buying it. "A precaution that you were planning to have your mother sign without fully explaining what she was signing? At a Christmas dinner? With a note reminding yourself to distract the children?" Ruth had no answer for that. the judge dismissed the petition. She ruled that Tommy was old enough to decide where he wanted to live, that there was no evidence of manipulation or unfitness on my part, and that in fact, the evidence suggested Ruth had engaged in attempted financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult, her own mother. "Mrs. Morrison," the judge said, her voice cold, "you should be grateful that your mother hasn't pressed charges against you. What you attempted to do is a crime. If I see you in my courtroom again with frivolous claims meant to harass your mother or grandson, I will hold you in contempt. Do you understand?" Ruth's face was red, tears streaming down her cheeks. She nodded. "This hearing is concluded," the judge said. "Mrs. Richardson, you and your grandson are free to go." We walked out of that courthouse into pale winter sunshine. Tommy was quiet, processing what had just happened. I was numb, emotionally exhausted, barely able to put one foot in front of the other. Harold patted my shoulder. "You did good, Evelyn. You stood up for yourself. That takes courage." Courage. I didn't feel courageous. I felt destroyed. Because yes, I'd won. The law was on my side. My house was safe. My grandson was safe. But what had I really won? My daughter was gone. My younger granddaughter was being kept from me. My family was shattered beyond repair. In the parking lot, as we were getting into Harold's car, Ruth appeared. She walked toward us, Wilfred trailing behind her, trying to pull her back. "Mom," she said, her voice broken. "Mom, please. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I made a terrible mistake. Please don't do this. Please don't take my son from me." I looked at her, really looked at her, and tried to find the little girl I'd raised in the bitter, desperate woman standing before me. Tried to find some reason to forgive, some path back to a relationship. But all I could see was the document spread on her table. The note in her handwriting. The calculation. The cold willingness to rob her own mother. "You took him from yourself, Ruth," I said quietly. "The moment you decided to betray me, you lost him. That was your choice, not mine. But I'm your daughter. Doesn't that mean anything? It used to mean everything. You used to mean everything. But you threw that away when you decided I was worth more to you as a source of money than as your mother." She sobbed, collapsing against Wilfred, who finally managed to pull her away. They left, and I watched them go, feeling nothing. No satisfaction. No relief. Just a vast, empty sadness that filled every corner of my being. It's been 8 months since that Christmas that never happened. 8 months since I put on that red dress, the one that still hangs in my closet, unworn, probably never to be worn. 8 months since Tommy warned me and saved me and lost his mother in the process. He lives with me now. Officially. His things are in the guest room. His homework is spread across the kitchen table. His laughter fills the house sometimes, though it's always tinged with sadness, with the weight of everything he's lost. He sees Grace occasionally. Ruth finally allowed supervised visits after the court hearing, though she makes them as difficult as possible. They meet at a neutral location, a park or a library, and Ruth watches them like a hawk, making sure I don't get anywhere near Grace. Grace doesn't understand why she can't see me. Ruth has told her some version of events that paints me as the villain, I'm sure. Maybe someday, when she's older, Tommy will tell her the truth. Or maybe she'll figure it out herself. Or maybe she'll hate me forever, believing her mother's lies. I don't know which would be worse. As for Ruth, I haven't spoken to her directly since the courthouse. Sometimes I see her car drive slowly past my house. Sometimes Tommy tells me she's asked about me, usually in manipulative ways. Does Grandma ever regret what she did, or does Grandma even care that she destroyed our family? I do care. God, I care so much it physically hurts. But I didn't destroy this family. She did. The moment she looked at me and saw dollar signs instead of her mother, she destroyed everything. Harold keeps monitoring my accounts, my property, everything. There haven't been any more attempts to access anything, but we stay vigilant. Because people who are willing to do what Ruth tried to do once are often willing to try again. I still have nightmares about that Christmas that never was. About what would have happened if Tommy hadn't warned me. About waking up one day to find my house sold, my accounts empty, my life stolen by the person I loved most in the world. In my darkest moments, I wonder if I should have just let her do it. If keeping my house and my money is worth losing my daughter and granddaughter. Maybe I should have sacrificed everything to keep the family together, even if it meant being victimized, being robbed, being used. But then I remember what Harold said, people who are capable of that level of betrayal don't usually change. And I remember Ruth's face when the judge dismissed her petition. Not shame. Not remorse. Anger. Fury at being caught, at losing, at not getting what she wanted. She wasn't sorry she'd tried to rob me. She was sorry she'd failed. If you're a parent or a grandparent watching this, please, protect yourself. I never thought I needed to protect myself from my own child. I never imagined that the baby I nursed, the toddler I taught to walk, the teenager I guided through heartbreak, the woman I helped raise 2 children of her own, could look at me and see only what she could take. But it happened to me. And it happens to thousands of elderly people every single year. Children who were raised with love and given everything turn around and steal from the parents who sacrificed for them. And they justify it. They tell themselves their parents don't need it, won't miss it, would want them to have it anyway. They tell themselves anything except the truth, that they're thieves. That they're betrayers. That they're willing to destroy the people who gave them life for money, for property, for things. Sometimes love blinds us to what people are capable of. I loved my daughter so much that I couldn't see what she was becoming. I couldn't see the greed growing in her heart. I couldn't see the calculations behind her smiles. I couldn't see that to her, I'd stopped being mom and become inheritance. Don't make the same mistake I did. If something feels off with your adult children, if they're suddenly very interested in your finances or your property or your legal documents, trust your instincts. Talk to a lawyer. Put protections in place. Because by the time you realize what's happening, it might be too late. And if you're someone's child watching this, if you're in debt, if you're struggling financially, if you're looking at your parents' assets and thinking about how much easier your life would be if you just had access to them, please, stop. Think about what you're considering. Think about the person who raised you, who loved you, who gave you everything they could. No inheritance is worth destroying your family for. No amount of money is worth betraying the people who brought you into this world and sacrificed to give you a good life. Talk to your parents. Be honest about your struggles. Ask for help if you need it. But don't lie. Don't manipulate. Don't steal. Because once you cross that line, once you betray that trust, you can never go back. The relationship is over. Dead. Destroyed beyond any hope of repair. I know. I'm living it. I still love my daughter. That's the most painful part of all this. Despite everything she tried to do, despite the betrayal and the lies and the cruelty, some part of me still loves her. I still remember the good times. I still see the little girl who used to crawl into my lap and say, "I love you, Mommy." Still hears her laughter on Christmas mornings past. I still feel the weight of her in my arms as a newborn. But love isn't enough. It's not enough to bridge the gap between who she was and who she's become. It's not enough to erase what she tried to do. It's not enough to rebuild trust that's been shattered so completely. Maybe someday she'll truly understand what she did. Maybe someday she'll feel genuine remorse, not just anger at being caught. Maybe someday she'll apologize in a way that shows real accountability, real change. But I'm not holding my breath. Because Harold was right. People who are capable of that level of betrayal don't usually change. And even if she did change, even if she got on her knees and begged for forgiveness, even if she spent the rest of her life trying to make amends, I don't know if I could ever trust her again. I don't know if I could ever look at her without seeing those documents spread on her table. Without hearing her plan to make sure I wouldn't even realize what I was signing. Without remembering the cold calculation in her eyes when the judge ruled against her. Some things break in ways that can't be fixed. Some betrayals cut too deep to heal. Some losses are permanent. Tommy is the one bright spot in all this darkness. That brave, honest, moral boy who risked his relationship with his mother to protect me. Who chose what was right over what was easy. Who carries the weight of this broken family on his 16-year-old shoulders and somehow stays kind, stays good. I look at him and I wonder, how did Ruth raise such a good kid while being willing to do something so terrible? How did he turn out so differently from her? What made him capable of seeing the wrongness of what she planned when she was blind to it? Maybe it was his father's influence. Wilfred is complicit in Ruth's scheme, I'm sure of it, but maybe he wasn't always that way. Maybe when Tommy was younger, before the debt and the desperation, Wilfred was a better man. A man who taught his son about integrity and honesty and doing the right thing even when it's hard. Or maybe it was just Tommy himself. Some innate goodness that couldn't be corrupted, couldn't be twisted, couldn't be bought. Whatever the reason, I'm grateful. Grateful that he saved me. Grateful that he's here. Grateful that at least one member of my family still has a soul. But I also grieve for him. Because he shouldn't have had to make this choice. He shouldn't have had to sacrifice his relationship with his mother to protect his grandmother. He shouldn't have to miss his sister, shouldn't have to carry this guilt, shouldn't have to wonder if he did the right thing. He did. He absolutely did. But that doesn't make it any easier. I think about my husband sometimes. Robert. My rock. My partner. The love of my life. What would he think about all this? What would he say to Ruth if he were still here? Part of me thinks he'd be heartbroken. He adored Ruth. She was his princess, his little girl, the light of his life. He would have done anything for her. Give her anything. Maybe that was part of the problem. Maybe we spoiled her. Maybe we gave her too much, made things too easy, never taught her the value of struggle and sacrifice. But another part of me thinks Robert would be furious. He had strong principles. He believed in honesty, integrity, and hard work. He believed you earned what you got and you didn't take what wasn't yours. If he knew Ruth had tried to steal from me, from us, really, since this house and everything in it is as much his legacy as mine, I think he would have disowned her. Or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe his love for her would have overridden everything else. Maybe he would have found a way to forgive her, to welcome her back, to rebuild the relationship. I'll never know. And somehow that makes it all worse. Because I'm navigating this nightmare alone, making decisions I'm not sure are right, without the partner who always helped me see clearly. I miss him so much. Every day. Every hour. The grief of losing him 8 years ago is still fresh, still sharp, still aching. And now it's mixed with this new grief, the loss of my daughter, the destruction of my family, the betrayal that I never saw coming. Sometimes I wonder if the stress of all this will kill me. I'm 71 years old. I have high blood pressure, arthritis, and the usual complaints of age. My doctor is worried about me. My friends are worried about me. Harold and Margaret check on me constantly. But I can't give up. Because Tommy needs me. Because Grace needs someone to tell her the truth someday. Because giving up would mean Ruth wins. And I can't let her win. So I keep going. Day after day. I wake up, make breakfast for Tommy, and drive him to school. I do my errands, clean my house, tend my garden. I have dinner ready when Tommy comes home. I help with homework. I watch TV. I go to bed. And I try not to think too much about what I've lost. About the daughter who's gone. About the granddaughter who's being kept from me. About the family Christmases that will never happen again. About the future I'd imagined, growing old surrounded by children and grandchildren, being there for birthdays and graduations and weddings, passing on family traditions and recipes and stories. All of that is gone now. Dead. Buried along with my trust and my innocence and my belief that family would always be there for you. But I'm still here. Still standing. Still fighting. Because that's what you do. You survive. You protect yourself. You protect the people who deserve protection, like Tommy. And you accept that some relationships, no matter how much you loved them, no matter how much you wanted them to work, are simply over. My daughter tried to rob me. That's the reality I live with every single day. The daughter I raised, loved, sacrificed for, would have stolen everything from me if a 16-year-old boy hadn't had more courage and integrity than she did. And now I live in this house, the house she wanted to take from me, with that 16-year-old boy, in the wreckage of what used to be a family, trying to build something new from the broken pieces. It's not the life I wanted. It's not the life I'd planned. It's not the life I thought I'd be living at 71 years old. But it's the life I have. And I'll be damned if I'll let Ruth's betrayal destroy what's left of it. So to everyone watching this, to everyone who's made it this far in my story, thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for witnessing my pain. Thank you for understanding that this could happen to anyone, that no family is immune to greed and betrayal and the destruction that comes when children view their parents as assets instead of people. Protect yourselves. Protect each other. And never, ever assume that love alone is enough to prevent someone from betraying you. Because sometimes it's not. Sometimes the people we love most are capable of hurting us in ways we never imagined possible. I learned that lesson the hardest way. I hope none of you have to learn it the same way I did. But if you do, if you're facing betrayal from your own children, if you're dealing with the aftermath of discovering that someone you trusted tried to rob you, know that you're not alone. Know that it's not your fault. Know that you have the right to protect yourself, to set boundaries, to walk away from relationships that have become toxic and destructive. And know that even when everything feels broken, even when the pain feels unbearable, even when you can't see a way forward, you can survive. You can heal. You can build a new life from the ashes of the old one. It won't be the life you planned. But it can still be a life worth living. And that's what I'm trying to do. Every single day. I'm trying to live. God bless you all. And protect your hearts. Because not everyone deserves access to them. Not even your own children.